Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor. The Daily Compliance News for February 1, 2022, the Not Fit for Purpose edition. We begin with that story from the DailyMail as Mike Lynch, having been ordered to be extradited to the U.S., has attacked the UK-U.S. extradition treaty as not fit for purpose, as Home Secretary Priti Patel says Britain's Bill Gates can be deported to the U.S. over criminal fraud charges. Really no surprise that he would lash out like this, but there clearly is an unequal extradition treaty that the Tony Blair government signed with the Bush administration, as U.S. prosecutors can force UK citizens to America, while it's much more difficult for the UK to reciprocate. So not clear what the result would be, but Mike Lynch now has apparently an appeal period. So we'll have to continue to watch this space. Next up, from the Miami Herald, reports that corruption keeps growing in Latin America, but most countries are fighting it wrong. Corruption is increasing in Mexico, Argentina, and other Latin American countries, as reflected in the latest TI CPI. And what the Miami Herald suspects is long suspected is true, that one-man solutions to combat corruption almost always are a failure. So authoritarian regimes tend to be corrupt, and I think that's what Latin America is finding. Next up, from Reuters, Cardinal Health to pay $13 million to resolve a False Claims Act case for kickbacks. The company agreed to pay to resolve allegations it gave doctors kickbacks to buy pharmaceutical products paid for by federal health care programs, the DOJ said. Cardinal Health acknowledged certain facts as a part of a $13.125 million settlement. The company noted it did not admit liability as a part of the settlement. Nevertheless, you have to conclude that if they paid, they were liable. So another pharmaceutical company caught up in False Claim Act conduct. And finally, in a very troubling article from the Wall Street Journal, a UK tribunal ruling against KPMG and several of its former employees raises questions about whether junior auditors can be held liable for alleged misconduct, as the Financial Reporting Council has worked to broaden its enforcement efforts. This is the continuing imbroglio of KPMG in England. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.